So hi, it's Dawn from Dawn's Dirt Gardening, Dirt Animals, Dirt Chickens, Dirt Homesteading, Dirt Politics, Dirt Religion, and Dirt anything we want it to mean. And so super excited about today's episode. I am actually here with Nina from 1,000 Hills, and she does tallow. So we're going to chat everything tallow. But yeah, just super excited about this show. I've actually known Nina for several years, long before she started her company. And so, welcome to the show, Nina.
Hi guys, how's it going? My name is Nina Baker and we have a small company called 1,000 Hills. It's we mainly produce what we call Moosterizers, and it is tallow-based but also animal-based. We do have a few products where we use leaf lard in the ingredients list as well.
Hey, super excited to have you here today on the show. So, I just want to start off by saying how we met. So, I think we met many, many years ago in church. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do remember. That's like the church over in Didsbury, I think, like the Bethel Church is what it
Yeah.
was. Yeah.
So we met at church and then we reconnected a few years ago. I think it was during COVID when I had my farm and I said, does anyone want to sell vegetables to their friends and neighbors? And you signed up for my CSA program and you actually sold my vegetables to your friends and neighbors. Tell me about that. How was that?
Yeah, that was such an amazing experience because that was, I think, early in our health journey, I want to say. And we were really starting to get into not just organic, but um, actually regenerative. And so we started to find and connect with local growers to provide us with nourishment. So that was such a good find, especially since we did have that connection from way back when, just through church and through family. And so when I was looking for, real things that were local, real food that was local to us, I was really excited to tell my friends and family. And then they were like, super excited about that as well, especially since I was delivering it to them. And it was such a, how do you say, fruitful relationship. So that was really nice.
Yeah, thank you so much for supporting my farm. I said that to all of my customers. Thank you so much for supporting my farm because it really was a team effort. And so you touched on something there. You touched on you started going down a health journey. So can you tell me about that? Because I'm sure that that's kind of where the baby parts of your business started. So tell me about this whole health journey and this, journey that you went on to get to the point where you were wanting to buy vegetables from a local farmer.
For sure. It I honestly believe it was more a God thing than anything else, just because my first son, our oldest, he was born with a dairy allergy, and um, I grew up partly in the Philippines and partly on an island called Saipan, where we did not know about allergies. We just, like, I'd never really been familiar with allergies. And so coming here, David, my husband, he has a nut allergy, a very severe one. So it's anaphylactic. And then having our son born with a dairy allergy, I was really thrown on a loop. And so that sparked everything. And going down the rabbit hole, I learned about the chemicals and the potential causes and triggers of said allergies. Of course, in the beginning, it was very surface. And so what I used to do was go to get alternative options, and learned very quickly that that was not the way to go. The way to go was to return to the land, return to actual nature, what grows, and more so what's grown locally, because eating from the areas that you are living in benefits you and can actually heal you much better than, trying to get a lot of stuff that are imported, particularly because you don't really know the source.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right. And so that's why I'm doing what I'm doing now. If you give a man a fish, he eats for the day. But if you teach a man to fish, he eats for a lifetime. And I truly believe that we need to bring our food system backwards. We need to start working with our local friends and neighbors and our, small businesses. And there's a quote that I really loved. I heard it just a couple weeks ago at a conference I was at. It said, everyone should be producers, but not everyone should be farmers. And so it's a quote from Dakota Cohen, and he does different pork products and different grains and different garden items and different things off of his farm. And what he means by that is that we should all be growing and doing something in our own spaces and then building it back into community, bartering and trading with people. And so, that's where the birth of your business, I'm sure, has come from, is doing something that you can do for your family. But to your point of eating locally and eating healthy is so bringing it back to where you are within your community. And I think food and business and livelihoods and all the things should be brought back to our communities. And so, yeah, absolutely, on your food journey. So how did you decide to get into this tallow business? Like, tell me about that. Like, so you were on the journey with your health, with your son's health, and then here we are a few years later working with my former farm, and now you've got your own business. So tell me how did that come about?
Absolutely. So along that health journey, we started to discover more towards an animal-based diet. We started to explore what the allergens could have potentially be, because they do have like environmental allergies, pet hair allergies, and as well as like pollen allergies. So lots of allergies back then. But um, when we were, doing research about like health products such as skincare, and in addition to our food, because I was basically going up and down store aisles, and I was a stay-at-home mom, and so I had the time to actually stand there and look up ingredients. And that's when I started to just see a pattern. If it was in a package and it had more than 5 ingredients, I knew I was going to be there for a few minutes because they were unrecognizable. And so then I thought, okay, let's scale it back even more. And scaling it back even more got me to nutrient dense options, because now I was starting to think about, okay, well, we have to eat what's in season, right? And then if it wasn't in season, what are we eating year round? And so the year round situation is obviously meat, because we have to have protein, we have to have fat. And so then we started kind of on that path. Now, along that path, during this time, my youngest, Elijah, he started to have a flare up. It was during, I'm going to say November, October, November. During that time, because of his their seasonal allergies, he started to get eczema on his face. And that was kind of a first. Damien had some that would kind of flake up under his eye, but Elijah's was a little bit more severe, and it was really worrisome. So I actually brought him to the doctors, and he right away tried to prescribe a steroid cream. And right then I was like, no, he's 6 years old. I'm not going to put steroids on his face. And the doctor was really surprised I said that. But I was like, is there something else you could recommend? And he says, Vaseline. And I almost walked out. I was just like, okay, well, thank you, but I think we're gonna go think about it or something. I can't remember. I think I was really frustrated and disappointed during that appointment. And so I left distraught. And that's when I started to put my research skills to the test, and I went down a rabbit hole. And lo and behold, I found tallow. And I was just like, really? Probably like 80% of the people we talk to during markets, um, that's exactly me, maybe even more so, like that aversion of like beef fat on my face and my kid's face. But I'm like, I like steak and I like the fatty part of the steak, and I generally prefer the fatty parts of steak. So, you know, okay, sure. But the actual science and the data that I did find sufficed, needless to say. So I went and started looking for products to purchase for my son, but it was too expensive. Like everything was so expensive. So then, of course, by this point, I realized that now I don't just want it for my one kid, and I don't want to start lathering on the other things to the rest of the family as well as myself. And so I couldn't justify a $40 little tin for our needs, like for our skincare needs. And so I was chatting with a friend of ours, and she was one of the moms at his school, and she told us that her own Elijah, her son, who's the oldest in their family, um, he was born with like a major eczema. So when he was a baby, it was just it covered him, and she actually learned how to make tallow because of it. And so she offered us some. We purchased some from her, but it was like a jar of this, and it worked. Needless to say, he started to clear up. Of course, we were also cleaning up his diet. We were looking at the glutens and the sugars, and then it took a week, maybe over a week, but it completely went away. And of course, family members found out about this. Friends also who have kids with eczema found out about this, and they wanted some. So I went back to her and I asked if I could grab a few more jars. And really, that's how the Moisturizer was born.
I love it, man. Wow. Oh, I love it. Wow, wow, wow. So you had a problem. You went to a doctor. A doctor, well, he had a fix, but it was, a prescribed this pill kind of fix. And you just went back to nature and back to really homesteading and the farm and, what God has given us in nature to fix your problems. And I just think that just shows the power of homesteading, the power of, growing your own food, knowing what you're putting on your body and all of the things, because it's nature that's giving us these things. You didn't need the concoction that the doctor prescribed. You needed nature. Now, I do think that there is a time and a place for a doctor. If I have a broken arm, for sure I'm going to go to a doctor. And there's a few other things too. I think, even antibiotics, if I'm really, really sick, I'm going to take an antibiotic, but I'm sure not going to take it on a daily basis. I want to get to the root of the problem. And that's kind of what you did with all of your research is, diet and environment and, figuring out how to get to the root of the problem to fix the problem. And I think that's where we need to go back to in society. We don't have so many sick back in the day, even back in the 80s and 70s and 60s and 50s, people weren't sick the way they are sick now. So, what that's my question. What's modern medicine doing to us? We're sicker and fatter and, less healthy now. And I think in big part due to our food, not the farmer, but the food that we find in the center aisles of our grocery store. Okay, so tallow, explain to me, in case anyone doesn't know what it is. What is tallow? Do you remember the toilet paper wars of 2020? Are you worried about being prepared in an emergency? Are you tired of being a slave to the corporations we purchase from? It's time to take control. Become ungovernable. Take your food system into your own hands. Hi, I'm Dawn, a coach dedicated to helping you live like grandma used to. Self-reliant, resourceful, and prepared. Whether it's raising chickens, growing a garden, canning your own food, or even milking a cow, I'll teach you how to thrive and survive in the space you have, big or small. We can even potentially make some money off your homestead. Visit Dawn's Dirt today to book your free jumpstart call. Together, as a team, we can get you self-reliant and ungovernable. We, the people, have the power to take back control. Remember, if you give a man a fish, he eats for a day. But if you teach a man to fish, he eats for a lifetime. Let's build a better future and a community, one skill set at a time.
So tallow, we particularly use beef tallow. Tallow is the fat that is found on an animal, pretty much ruminant animals. And so these are the animals that have four-chamber stomachs, and these are animals such as bison and buffalo, beef, and so on. We particularly use beef just because it is a lot more accessible and sustainable and affordable. So we get the tallow from a farmer, a local farmer. And what happens is it goes through a purification system, which is basically a rendering, and we call it washing. So we wash the tallow and then we dry the tallow, and then it becomes the creams that is created.
Hey, interesting. Okay, so you're going to a local farmer to get your tallow or to get your fat to make the tallow out of. So again, I love it. To me, this goes back to that quote I was saying, you're a producer of the byproduct of the fat, and the farmer is the producer of the fat that, we need to survive. And so this is what we need more of in society. So if you're listening today, be a producer, figure out a side gig, figure out a side business, do something to produce something, that we can barter and trade and create a parallel system, really, because that's how we'll become ungovernable is, just working with our community and our friends and neighbors. And so, okay, so you had the eczema, you went to the doctor, you did all the things, you started making your own tallow. What made you decide to sell it? When did you get into business, and how did that come about?
Okay, so when we get to the tallow part, just like you were mentioning, so we went from the farmer, and right now we source it from two farms, and they are in Blue Ridge, Alberta, as well as Vermilion. And I think that's one of the most important things about the tallow industry as well, is that you need to know the source. Okay. I remember this very burned in my head when you said it, Dawn, was ask the right questions. And honestly, that speaks so much about what's happening today, because a lot of people will jump on the bandwagon of natural and local or what have you, but really people need to ask where, right? What's the source? What is the source? Or even farming procedures. And so that is something we found to be very important, because there is a lot of tallow businesses popping up, and I call it mystery tallow. So back to our journey here. After we decided that there was a big demand just in our small group of friends and family, I found the conviction, and this is something I prayed over, to share this with other families, because there was what was I gonna say? Go check Amazon or go find another maker whom I know you can't afford every month, right? And so I come from a very humid climate, a country with a very humid climate. And so after we shower, we always have to put on lotion, all over our bodies every single time. I thought everybody else did this as well. I've learned that that's not the case. But think about that. That's a lot of chemicals you are putting onto and then into your body every single day or every other day. And so that's a huge access to these foreign substances. And so of course I'm thinking, I know a lot of the families who are facing the same things. I want health for them as well. And so I wanted to make sure that I was going to do this. If I was going to do this, I would I'm given the opportunity to serve the community at large. And so the friend that I had who was actually making this stuff, she and I got to talking, and we decided to just jump in and start the business. And so she was the part, the production aspect, and I was the business and sales aspect. And so we started going along down that route. Um, However, after a few months, she has a very, very hectic schedule. She was not able to sort of continue on meeting the demands that this really, like, it took off. Like, people want good nutrient dense products for themselves, right? For their life. And so so we decided to part ways, and I thought maybe I would also kind of slow down and just, take it slow, but really I couldn't, because at that point we had already entered a few stores, and I was getting emails, and you know my husband and I would be in bed at night just thinking, how are people, like, how is it that everybody wants to rub beef fat on their face and bodies all of a sudden? And also just thinking about not having access to it, having to eventually buy it somewhere else that I knew was going to be unaffordable and unsustainable. Like, I just couldn't even picture it. And so we made a decision, my husband and I, and we decided to commit to doing it ourselves. And so lo and behold, I learned how to produce, to do the rendering portion of it. I was actually blessed enough to meet someone who was trained by indigenous grandmas, and I got to go to her house, and
Mm.
she showed me the process. So I was able to do the process, and then of course me with my research skills, I started to dig down and just find how to make it as ergonomic, meaning to say easy to use for the daily person, because I understood that this wasn't going to be just for the group of people who are aware about real, natural, nutrient dense things, but it was also to evangelize other people to come towards the real, local, nutrients dense things. And so I knew I was going to be serving a few different communities. And so I had to make the product approachable. And one of the first things was to make it affordable and sustainable. And of course, keeping that high standard of health.
I love that. I love that. And I absolutely love that you went right down to the source. You went to an indigenous grandmother who, has more knowledge than we do on all these things. I can tell you in Dawn's Dirt and in the last several years, my grandmother's 96, and I've chatted so much about what grandma, did you do this or what did you do with that? I should actually have my grandmother on the podcast. That's a great idea. Just thought of that right now. But yeah, like, it's we need to get back to our roots, and that's where Dawn's Dirt started. Is I was growing food for people, but yeah, I just feel the need to teach this skill set to others. And that's what you're doing as well. You went to the source, and now you're going to, have this great product for your community and your friends and neighbors. And so tell me about, you're a mom. So you're married, you're a mom, you've got two boys. What is it like to run a business? Because I know for myself, when I had the farm, I did payroll in the hospital. I was at a farmer's market with a 3-week-old baby. Like, you just did what you got to do to make the farm work. And so how is it for you, being a mom and the balance and things like that of being a business owner and doing these natural products and having babies and a husband and everything that you as a mama has to do?
That's such a good question, because I feel almost like I got kind of pushed into this. I did not realize how big it was. It not big, but like what an undertaking it is, because I think being a mom who is hyper aware about issues around her community and, you know, just how to raise children more mindfully and just these things alone, and having a husband and of course a ministry, that in itself is a lot of time and energy and effort. And then I actually went back to school because um, we had discussed that once both kids were full time at school, I would think about going and doing something else. And so I was in school and I thought, boy, I was a goner. Like that was really like a lot. And then I started working, and then I was as an employee, and I was like, oh, this is great, but also this is still a lot. And now I'm an actual business owner with everything happening. I think it is impossible. It's really impossible. Like without God, like I feel that's the propeller. Like because otherwise I am going off on very little sleep, particularly in market season, which we are now we are immersed in. And it's this, I think, going back to our whys, right? I constantly have to go back to my why. And of course, a big one is my children. My kids are, I want them to grow up in a society where they can go into a store and know what they're going to buy, know the difference between, you know, the this packaged goods with this, like almost not super how do you say, streamlined kind of packaging, but like gold compared to anything else. And so that's one of the big things that keeps me going. But it is such a big juggle because having the production side of things and also doing the marketing and the sales side of things, and then doing school drop off, school pickup, and then making casseroles for the potluck at church and all of the things, like it is quite unfathomable. Talking about it almost feels like tedious, but it is definitely not. It is such an amazing service and an amazing and a blessing to be a part of all of this, because at the end of the day, knowing what's being put onto my kids and our skin and our bellies is so peaceful. You just have such peace, and receiving feedback from people who have purchased the jars telling us how their babies' scaly skin have just disappeared, or something they've struggled with have now healed, and they're just amazed, and we're amazed. And I honestly wouldn't believe it unless I would ask them for photos. I was like, really, can you show us a photo? And they'll show us photos. And so I am really floored and stunned and shocked every single time I see these things still. Like I feel like I'm so new to the game that
Yes.
it's fresh.
For sure. Absolutely. I hear what you're saying. And I don't know if you know this or not, but I just welled up with tears slightly because you said something really important to me, the why. You were talking about, I asked you a question and you talked about the why, the reason why you're doing what you're doing, the reason why you're doing the late nights and the, early mornings and just putting into the business and being busy. And it's your children. And I can think back to having my farm, I got my first job in 20 years last summer after I sold the farm. And people are like, oh, now you've got more time for your children. And I said, actually, I don't. Actually, I have less time for my children now that I have a good old job. And the reason for that is when I was doing the farmers markets, when I had the farm, when I did all those things, when they were little, yes, they went to babysitters and I missed some of those years. But when my kids were older, my kids came with me to farmers markets. They worked for me. We worked together as a team. My third daughter, she talked about, I'm going to be the third generation farmer and things like that. So that's why I'm doing what I'm doing again, is because it's for my children. And that's, I think, what what all of society for many, many years has done is, it's for the next generation and the next generation. And you hit the nail on the head when you talked about the why. And so if you're listening today and you want to know the why would you want to raise your own food? Why would you want to have your own chickens? Why would you want to, have tallow? Why would you want to do any of these things, homesteading things? The reason is the next generation. It's the children. We want to pass these things along down. So I got it from my grandmother, who gave it to my mother, who gave it to me, and I'm going to pass it down to my children. My children cook and do all those things as well, because it's just passing down generation to generation. And that is the why. That is why homesteading and this whole get back to our roots movement is so important. It's the why. Our kids. Yeah. You moved me to tears.
Oh, thank you. I completely agree. I can't emphasize that enough. I think that we really owe it to our children and their children, and just keep to just try to bring the world back. And I think that's how it's going to get better, is that it's it's not trying to change into, how do you say, like artificial, right? Because that's where everything is going down. It's going down literally artificial intelligence, right? So we're face to face with AI today. And while it assists us in certain things, we cannot let it dictate how we live, right? Like, we are not machines. We're organic. We're people. Well, we're natural. And so that's what belongs in our bodies. That's what belongs on our bodies. And so how dare people decide for us that we should move towards pharmaceutical companies, industrialized skincare, industrialized snacks, and baked goods? I mean, it's it has to come back. It has to come back to these fingers, these hands that creates it, because it's who's receiving it. And so I think the leaps and bounds we've made have a very good use, but we have to recognize the difference of how to use that, because I think we're starting to forget that we are unique individuals made and designed and created by a creator, and therefore it has to stay that way. And so I think the farther
Yes.
we're getting away from that idea, the more artificial things are becoming.
Boom. 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 I love that. You couldn't have said it better. And again, that's why you're doing what you're doing. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing. That's why I farmed. That's why Dawn's Dirt is even a podcast. That's why we're doing all of it, is to get back to our roots. We just need to get back to nature. Yes, technology has a place and time in life, but we need to get back to square one, which is just, who God made us and how he created us. And so, yeah, I love it. Okay, I want to actually switch gears a little bit on you, because this has been a great conversation so far, but it brought something up. So you are brand new, just a couple of years, I think years in business. I'm not sure. So you're just brand new in business, and you're brand new in farming, or farmers markets. So you're brand new in farmers markets. And that was my world, was farmers markets for many, many years. I sold my tomatoes directly to customers and things like that. So can you tell me, what has it been like to go to a farmers market? What do you do? What do you do differently? Tell me about that journey about farmers markets.
Oh man. So we're actually officially just 1,000 Hills. Our little business has been official since October. So not even a year. Like, we are so fresh. And we started the farmers market circuit back in the summer. We kind of did a couple in the spring, but really it was the summer that I got the full exposure to the markets. And man, if it wasn't for the markets, I really wouldn't be doing this. I think like that interaction with people and the I don't know, the warmth that they provide or give, the excitement, it's so contagious, you know, and this and tallow right now, a lot of people say it's trending and oh, it's this new thing and things like that. And to me, it's ancestral. Like it's one of the most ancient of things. And so I tell them that it's like a reclamation of what's real, and that's what you're craving. It's that realness. And I think that people really relate to that. And so market life is amazing. Like it is so exhausting, but it is amazing because our setup when if you've ever seen us at the market, we look like a store. A lot of people tell us that we look like we've been in business for years and well established, and we are not, okay? Uh, we just I have a, business and marketing background, and so I know how to do certain things, but this entire movement of natural and really regenerative nutrient dense like sphere is very very new to me. And so um anyhow, with the market, we try to prepare about a week out. So for example, we actually have a market tomorrow. We're going to be at the Inglewood night market, and that kind of kicks off our, I don't know what you want to call it, spring summer season. And we have been preparing for that for a couple weeks now just to make sure that we have enough stock. And we have grown our product line. And so we actually have a lot of products. And we pack all of that. We pack all of the equipment, such as the canopy and the tables. And then we have to think about what the customer sees. Like that's what I have to think about is if a customer sees me, because I am shelling out very unconventional items. I'm not just a bath and body product, right? It's not just this skincare that smells nice and looks pretty. I'm actually the opposite. It's like, um, it's tallow, it's beef fat, and it doesn't always smell great. Every cow is different, and so there is this tendency that people start to think about when it comes to tallow. They're like, oh, I tried some and it was just like it just smelled like it made me crave a roast, kind of thing. And while we try to make our stuff not smell so much like beef, um sometimes it still will. Okay, like you just have to expect that. But
Yeah.
most of the people, well, we've done it in a way that it doesn't smell so much anymore. And we have actually worked really hard to not perfect, but how do you say, progressed in the texture, because beef fat, especially suet is very hard. Once you've done rendering suet and you've cleaned it out, once it's in natural form, it's a hard thing, right? So you would have to like scrape it. And that's where we started. We started with very hard, very dense tallow skincare. But now we've gotten to a point where now you can actually just scoop it up with your hand, spread it very easily, and it doesn't, and without having compromised the quality and the nutrient profile. And so this is all under consideration
Yeah.
as part of the market prep. And so we put it all together and we set up. So setup is usually, most markets are really nice about letting us set up between 4 or 3 hours prior, and then we set it up. And I do have a lot of help. We've trained our boys to assist us in the business. So a big part of that is loading and unloading and putting things together. So we have actually started to create a little bit of a system. Our youngest, he just turned 9, so he's very young. So for the most part, he'll help, and we don't try to force him unless it's necessary. So he's usually playing and going visiting other vendors, which is really nice. Maybe not so nice for them because they're busy setting up, but anyway, then we get all set up, and our oldest son, he helps with the actual service of providing this product. So what my husband does at bedtime is he reads to them I created like a team handbook, and so he would read it to them with like 5 days before a market, as instead of a bedtime story, or like as a bedtime story, so that they get refamiliarized with the information, and they can actually help individuals, and they know how to do the uh, POS system. They actually know how to do it better than
Yeah.
I can. I'm the person talking about the tallow. I'm very passionate about what good it can do, and I know quite a lot of information about it as far as knowledge and experience. But the kids, they can cash you out really quickly. They know how to find the product on the system, so they're super good about that, and they know how to sell it as well. So
Yeah. I love it. I love that you are at farmers markets. I love that you're out talking to people, and that's the key to farmers markets. I told my staff all the time, your job is to say hello to every person that walks past the booth if you at all possibly can, you know. I love that your kids are involved. It brings me back memories as well of my girls, you know, selling at farmers markets, and all three of my girls did. They sold and they talked to people and they had conversations, and mom, I'm going to run the till, and I'm going to run the till, and they always wanted to, they fought over the debit machine and things like that. Market kids, my kids grew up as market kids, and so your kids are doing the same thing. It's such a good way for kids to grow up. It teaches them responsibility, it teaches them, you know, work ethic, it teaches them, you know, how to interact with other human beings of different ages. You know, my kids were not just on screens, they actually did the work. And sometimes setting up a booth is a lot. You know, we had at my biggest market, we had 6 tents and I don't know, 12 or 15 tables, and it was a lot of work to set up a booth at a farmer's market to sell all that food, right? And we had it down to a science. My booth wasn't the prettiest booth. I've seen your booth, it's very pretty. But yeah, like that's where it's at. And again, even that alone, working with your children at a farmer's market, communicating, you know, the value of money, you know, the bedtime story. I love that story. The bedtime story, you know, all of that just enriches families and enriches, you know, communities and things like that. We need to get back to that. We need to stop hiding in our houses behind closed doors or shopping online, you know. Let's go back to the people. And yeah, it's totally where it's at. Totally, totally, totally where it's at. Okay, so we've just got a few more minutes here. So tell me a bit about your different products that you have in tallow. Just tell me, you know, pick your top 5 or something like that. What's your top 5 favorite things that you sell with your tallow?
okay, yeah, I'll split that into 3 and 2, just because we have some new ones that I want to highlight for the summer. Um, our top 3 bestsellers, hands down, are number one. It just kind of rose to the top, are our face creams. Our face creams, we call them our face moo. Okay, so we have right now, as it stands, 6 kinds. We started with 2, and the 2 were Frankie Moo and Rosie Moo. And so it's just with frankincense, and the Rosie Moo has geranium in it. And then the second thing that is the bestseller is definitely the Moosterizer line, which is the cornerstone of the business. And so that's the main. We've split it up into 2 kinds. There's one we call the OG Moo, so it's the original, and it just started with 2 ingredients. It's just tallow and extra virgin olive oil, but now we've added the olive squalane to that to make it softer and faster absorption. And so that's the original. And then the other side to that is the Super Moo, which has cocoa butter with it. And so that one is for the super dry, areas or seasons that we get, especially around winter. And so that gives that extra occlusivity, like it keeps moisture in, and it's so nourishing. And then the third is our healing salve. Our healing salve is what a lot of people with skin issues have turned to. And so because I do try to tell people that it's a holistic thing. It's not just like use this and you know all your problems are going to go away. There's no magic pill, right? Everybody wants this one magic pill. There's just not. You have to think about your diet, you have to think about your stress, you have to think about your vitamin D or sun consumption. You have to think about your hydration and movement. Like it matters. If you want great skin, you have to think about those things. However, this is one of the first lines of defense, protecting your skin, healing your skin, helping your skin. And so the healing salve is primarily just tallow and cocoa butter. And because of its potent nature, it really tackles serious issues like eczema, psoriasis, and rosacea that we've found. And then the two new things I want to highlight are the mineral sun care with tallow. So that is just your tallow with non-nano zinc oxide. And so it's really one of the best things for sunning responsibly. I don't believe in sunscreen in the sense that you're gonna I don't know. Sunscreen is a whole nother. We can have a podcast about sunscreen. It is such a huge topic, but the reason why I particularly like it is because my Asian skin, I freckle. I get these like little dark spots, and of course, I'm also getting older, and I love the sun. I'm not going to stay inside when it's nice and sunny out. And so putting on a layer of sun care that has zinc that reflects it away, that causes otherwise, photo aging. It's called photo aging, that gives you little lines and little spots. So for as long as I can avoid that with something natural, I think it's just amazing. And so that's something we've come up with. And then the other thing is our lip balms, which we have also put. Some of them have some not SPF. I can't say SPF. It's some sun care in there as well with the non-nano zinc oxide.
Hey friends, on Dawn's Dirt, we get real about growing food, farming, homesteading, living free, and digging into the stuff that actually matters. If you're loving the dirt we're dishing out, don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow on your favorite social media platforms. That's how we keep growing this community of badass, soil-covered, chicken-loving, freedom-chasing humans. Like and subscribe to me on Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, you name it. Come be part of the movement. Okay, wow, I like it. So you've got a whole product line of skincare, and that's really what tallow is. So you've started this business. It's growing, it's thriving. You told me that you're going to the Stampede this year, the Calgary Stampede. That's amazing as a vendor. So your business is booming, and the Lord owns it, and it's so exciting. So any last thoughts, just as we close here, where can people find you?
Great question. Yeah. We have actually now entered 9 stores. We are entering our 10th, I think, in a matter of a week. So that's still top secret. That's not out yet. But yeah, so far
Okay.
we have 9 retail partners. So you can find us at the Calgary Farmers Market, both locations, at the shop called Crafted. And it is a really, really cute little gift shop. But yeah, it's in the Calgary Farmers West is across from COP or Windsport, and then Calgary Farmers South is on the Blackfoot Trail. And then you can also find us at Sunnyside Natural Market, which is down in Kensington. We are also found in another shop, a men's shop. That's a new thing we've created, is a men's line. We have Manly Moo is what we call it, and that is found at the Calgary Farmers Market West. It's called Adesso Man. So he's a little boutique for really, oh, his shop is so handsome. I don't know, can I say handsome? But yeah, it is such a nice shop. And so you can find us there. We are also at the Squiggly Pig in Airdrie. We are in 2 locations in Cochrane, the 2 Pharmacy and the Nutters. And our newest retail partners are Okotoks Nutters and Okotoks Naturals. So I hope I'm not missing
Wow.
one.
That's okay. Wow. Okay. So, but again, some of my listeners are right across Canada and right anywhere. So, where can they find you online? Do you have an Instagram page? Do you like where a website? Where do people find you there?
Yeah, so as far as our overseas people or people that are a little further away, we are launching our website, I'm gonna say in June. And so it's gonna be perfect time to get your Sunny Moo line and our spring care. And also, at the moment, you can find us on Instagram. We are moosterizer.ab. So our tallow line is actually called Moosterizers. So that's what we are, moosterizer.ab on Instagram.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. I love the branding actually, Moosterizers, because yeah, it talks about like the beef and I just love it. Your branding is great, your product is great, your business is great, and I love it. So yeah, thanks so much for being on the show today. Really appreciate your time and yeah, chatting about it. And so look forward to this episode coming out. So thanks for being here today.
Thanks so much, Dawn. I think that you have probably um, helped us step off and kind of opened this world up to us just because that little time we had with the veggie baskets that was part of the awakening, for being more in touch with local makers and local producers. And I just really appreciate that you were a part of that journey. And yeah, even just seeing you at the markets, I remember getting those hugs, especially at, I think, Dalhousie, and it was such a fun time. I think markets are such a great energy, a great environment, and so you were a big part of that. And whenever I think about markets, I thought about you, Dawn, and Shirley's Greenhouse, and that's how I kind of associated it. And so I really appreciate you having me here and yeah, helping us share about this business.
Thank you so much, man. That just made me well up with tears again. It just solidifies that there's a bigger plan and a bigger plan in place, and it's about bringing food and items and our things that we produce to the people and building community. So thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you as well.